This is To the Front. Tools for today's top agents.
All right, welcome back to episode number 37 of To the Front. 37 episodes deep in a year. Hopefully you've loved the content. You've got it marked. We do hear from people all the time that you listen to it while you're on the treadmill. I need to get back to the treadmill. We hear people that use it, that listen to it on their drive in from work. So, hey, we're grateful you're along for the ride. Now, today's episode is something that I've been wanting to talk about for a while, but I've been a little nervous to talk about it. And the reason is because when I work with agents, I never want to group them into categories, so to speak, even though today I'm going to group agents into categories. The reason why I want to group agents into categories is because I know that through the life of your agency, you've probably got ups and downs, and maybe every day is a little bit different, and you don't want to be grouped in a specific category. So today is not meant to pin you into a category, but today is really meant to give you little reflection points about where you're currently at, and then maybe give you some things to be proud about in that moment, or some things to maybe challenge you to the next place. So today's episode is going to be the 5 types of agents. Right? These are the 5 types of agents. I've tried to cast a wide net on these, but my guess is that you've probably found yourself in one of these 5 categories, and maybe the category changes for you. But yeah, these are the 5 types of agents that I see every day working with FrontRunner and talking to agents every day. And again, let me give you a disclaimer. I've never been an agent. I've never actually been a team member, but I have spent the last 10 years of my life doing nothing but working with agents and team members. And these things have played out pretty true. Okay, so I'm going to give you the 5 types of agents. I want you to put yourself in one of these groups, and then I want you to think, is that the group that I want to be in? And if it's not, then there's some real easy ways that I think you can go to the next group. If you're in a group that makes you happy, awesome. Keep on doing it. Be encouraged. Okay, here we go. The first agent that I see every day is called the everyday agent. Now, what I mean by the everyday agent is that this agent cares deeply about their agency and their business, but they spend most of their day doing everyday stuff. What do I mean by that? I mean that they're often the ones answering the phone. But if they're not answering the phone, they're the ones submitting apps. They're the ones meeting with customers every single day. They spend most of their day doing everyday agency stuff. And sometimes that agent might feel like they're spinning the plates every day. They're coming in the office, they're doing the same things over and over and over. Now, while there's nothing wrong with being an everyday agent, because you probably care, again, like I say, deeply about your team members and your business, the challenge, the issue sometimes with being an everyday agent is that you never get 30,000 feet above your agency to ask, what's the next step? Where can I grow my business? Because rarely do I talk to an everyday agent who just wants to maintain their book of business or grow a little bit every year. Most of the time when I talk to an everyday agent, they don't see themselves as everyday agents. They see themselves as agents who want to grow and they want to really advance their agency forward, but they can't quite get above the daily stuff, the daily rigmarole of their agency. So that's the first type of agent, the everyday agent. But again, let me tell you the challenge. Number 1 is that the everyday agent struggles to really grow exponentially because they spend too much of their time, you've heard the old cliche, in the business, not on the business. But another thing that I found with the everyday agent is that they often struggle trusting their team members to run the business. Now, that might be because the team members are new, but I've seen everyday agents that have team members that are there 5, 10, and 15 years, and they have great team members, but for some reason, they just sometimes struggle trusting their team members to run the business because they wouldn't run it like you run it, or they wouldn't say it like you say it. So the everyday agent often spends a ton of time sort of micromanaging everything that happens. So if this is you, and you don't want it to be you, then I challenge you to do this, is to start asking people how they're doing, not what they're doing. Now, what do I mean by that? Because the everyday agent is so focused on what's happening in the agency that sometimes they forget to care about the people that work for them because they're the everyday agent. So what you can do when you walk into your office, just change the first question that you ask each team member. Rather than what are you doing or how are you going to spend your day, ask them how they are doing. Sure, that might get a little personal, but I think there are ways to ask that obviously make the team member feel valued. And when you ask how you're doing, you don't follow up with what you're doing. Maybe what it is you say is, hey, I trust that you're going to have a great day. Let me know if I can help. If you're an everyday agent, not only do you want to change maybe the way that you ask questions, if you're an everyday agent, you need to start putting in and if you want to move beyond it, you need to start putting in your calendar days out of the office. Now, that's just not vacation or breaks or anything like that. A day out of the office means that this is going to be a day specifically devoted to asking yourself, where do I want my business to be in the next year, in the next 3 years, in the next 5 years? And you probably ought to do this at least once or twice a month, but there would be no problem in doing this once a week, even if it were for 3 or 4 hours. Your team's going to run the business. You're going to break away with a journal or something to write with, and you're just going to start dreaming and you're going to start planning. And then you're going to start taking those things and figuring out how to put them into action. I can't talk all about the different processes. There are lots of different processes that you could follow, like traction, and just you could go hire a coach who would be great. There are a lot of great coaches out there. But if you're an everyday agent and you want to not be an everyday agent, then the first thing you got to do is you got to ask different questions and you got to start scheduling time to work. The cliche says on the business, not in the business. Now, the second type of agent that I've seen is called the set it and forget it agent. Now, I know that sounds negative when I say it, and I really don't mean to be negative, because there are agents that I meet that was their whole goal of launching their business, is that they wanted to spend a certain amount of time building. They wanted to put some people in place to maintain, and then they wanted to go do something else or go be on the beach or whatever. So that's actually, let me tell you, I used to look down on that. That's not all negative. If that is what your intention is, then well done. Because most of the good set it and forget it agents that I meet, they typically are marked because they've got one really, really good person in their agency, whether it's an office manager or just a super high producer and a really effective service team member. Most often, these offices have key people that are running it, and the set it and forget it agent is going to often spend more money compensating those key people because they're not in the office. Now, with the set it and forget it agent, there are some risks that you take. And maybe if you're one of those agents and your agency's in a different part of the country, or you're not in your agency, but maybe once a month or something like that, you know what I'm getting ready to say is true. And that is the thing that a set it and forget it agent risks is losing the DNA of their office. What's the DNA? The DNA is the chemistry by which your business runs. And whether it was intentional or unintentional, when you launched your business and grew it, you grew it with a specific DNA, a specific profile. And it was either marked by seriousness, goofiness, lightheartedness, you were folksy, you were really businesslike. Whatever the DNA of your business was, you either intentionally or unintentionally set it, and your team adopted it in some way or form. Now, when you made the decision to set it and forget it, in other words, you decided not to be involved in the day-to-day of your business, whether it's going well or it's not going so well, the thing that you risk is that the DNA can potentially change. Is that the things that you really value about the business can go away when you go away. Because I am more convinced than ever that a business owner's primary job is not to run the business. It's to set the DNA. It's to set the chemistry of the team. And that the team, it's so compelling and so exciting to the team that they will execute whatever game plan you set in place. So naturally, when the person who sort of point guards the DNA is away, often I see that the DNA starts to go downhill. And what happens when the DNA goes downhill? Another DNA replaces it. And sometimes that's not as positive as the one that you put in place. So if you're a set it and forget it agent, I'm not saying that's negative, because that may have been your point all along. But you want to be real careful about monitoring the DNA of your office and ensuring that that keeps going forward. Because what happens, I've seen a lot, the set it and forget it agent will come back to their agency, and the decline they'll start to see is not drastic. It's just a little bit. It's a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. To all of a sudden you find that you got to start being an everyday agent again, because it's either that or you're going to lose your business. Also, everyday agents most often don't really grow a ton. But if they have really good team members, they will often maintain their book and just inch up a little bit every single year. So if you're concerned about, if you're set and forget an agent, you're concerned a little bit about your DNA, much like the everyday agent, you need to schedule intentional time in your agency or speaking with your agency via Zoom or whatever it is to reinforce what you're all about. And not only do you want to reinforce it verbally, you want to reward people that uphold your DNA. So whatever that is, when you see people upholding it and doing things that feed it, you want to reward it, because behavior that is rewarded, what's the saying, is repeated. So if you reward it, they will repeat it. So you got to be very intentional about monitoring your DNA and then rewarding that. At Front Runner and at the print shops that I run, we have five pillars of DNA. And my whole job at both companies is to monitor those pillars. And maybe my team's a little bit tired of me talking about those 5 pillars of DNA, but I don't care, because they're important. They're important to me. And I also reward it. In fact, it was about 3 months ago. One of my pillars of DNA is what I call an upside down pyramid. In other words, if you want to be a really great leader, you'll first be a really great servant. In other words, you will be very good at serving people. If you're a faith-based person, we call that a good washer of feet. Well, what I did is I saw a piece of trash out at my print shop. It was just a cup that had been sitting there for days and days and days. And it was technically true that it was nobody's job in the agency to pick that cup up and throw it away. But an upside down pyramid demands that somebody pick up the cup. So what did I do? I took a $50 bill out of the register. I hid it. I taped it underneath the cup, and I put a rock on top of the cup. I didn't want it to blow away. And I said, okay, whoever picks up this cup first gets the $50. 1 week goes by, 2 weeks goes by. Nobody picks up the piece of trash. So finally, I take my team outside on one of the days and I say, everybody look at that cup. How many people have noticed that cup? And they're like, yeah, we've seen it. And I said, okay, I told one of my team members, why don't you bend down and pick it up? And they did, and they saw $50. And they were like, oh, why didn't I get the cup? Well, it's because you were missing that piece of the DNA. So you want to know now? I got the cleanest parking lot in all of Kentucky. My team's always picking up trash. And so I found other ways to give them little $50 handshakes or some way to reward and recognize people who do things to reinforce DNA. Do the same thing, and your DNA will be protected. But I want to move on to the third type of agent that I often see, and I'm going to call this the new agent. Now, before I tell you what marks the new agent, I want to tell you a new agent is not just an agent who's new. That sounds like a weird word play, but let me tell you, is that every one of you, I'm betting, in your agency career has felt moments when you felt new. You felt energized. You were excited about the day. You were excited about the possibilities and the opportunities. So when I say the new agent, I don't mean the new necessarily in time. I mean the new in perspective and heart. Maybe you went to a conference and you got super excited and now you're back in the agency, you're ready to conquer it. Or you had a mentor, someone of influence, spend time and encourage you, or you had a couple months where things are just going right and all of a sudden that momentum has started to build. The new agent is often marked by an excited eagerness to try new things. That's the new agent. Now, we do find here at FrontRunner new agents all the time who are trying everything. They're signing up for every service, including ours, which I appreciate. They are trying every comp plan that they can think of. They are incentivizing and changing their team structure over and over and over. And they're just trying to sort of experiment and figure out what works. That's what marks the new agent. And the new agent means you're in a season of experimentation and you'll try anything to see what sticks. And I think that's a good thing. I think that's not a bad thing at all. Now, let me give you a couple of challenges for being the new agent. Okay, the first is this, and I heard this phrase one time when I was in Hawaii, and I heard someone say this. They said, "Not every wave is worth riding." That's pretty good, right? Now. Let me tell you, I can't surf at all. I can boogie board sometimes, but when there's a surfer who's going out to surf and they see waves that are coming up, every wave, they can't surf every wave because they're going to miss the wave that is the biggest, that's going to be the most impactful, or whatever they're trying to do. And one of the challenges and one of the downfalls I've seen in a new agent mentality is that they try to ride every wave. And what happens is it leaves their team confused. In fact, when they see you coming back from that conference or that event, they're thinking in their minds, okay, what's he or she going to implement this time? How are we going to change this? How are we going to change that? And they constantly sit on the edge of their seat, wondering how you're going to flip the script on them. Again, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what it does circumvent is this, that sometimes really great ideas take time to come to fruition. And if you're constantly chasing the new thing, then you're never going to have enough time to let that thing that you implemented flesh out and see if it works. Because oftentimes there is a life cycle to change. And one day I'll talk about that on the podcast. But one part of the life cycle of change is that thing that you're trying to do, that method you're trying to implement in your agency stops being new and exciting and it just becomes tough. And so many agents will just quit that thing. They'll throw it away because it's too tough. When if they would have just wrote it out a little more, learned a little bit more, that thing that was tough, they actually understand it now and it starts to benefit their agency if they just stick with it. But what happens is that the new agent will often get excited about something, implement it in their agency. As soon as it gets tough or it doesn't work a little bit, they throw it away and they start again. It's this whole cycle over and over and over again. And I got to tell you, that is a very tough way to grow an agency because your team members never really know how you want them to do business. And you don't let anything go long enough to see if it's actually effective, because when it gets tough, you ditch. Again, this is the new agent. Not a bad. I actually love the attitude of the new agent because it does mark a season of trying things and experimenting. And I think no matter how long you've been an agency, you ought to have seasons where you're excited and you try new things. Just make sure you play them all out to fruition. Okay, the fourth one is this. I'm going to call this the aha agent. All right, the aha agent. What is an aha agent? That is an agent who has implemented something or a process or a culture or a DNA or something into their business, and they've let it work long enough let it cook long enough to find out that it's actually working. And it's that aha moment. Aha moments in your life where you're like, oh, I can't believe I didn't do this longer. I can't believe I didn't discover this beforehand. It was about 10 years ago that I was driving back. It was me and a couple of people. True story, I used to run a college music tour. Total failure. Okay, so we'll talk about that maybe some other podcast. Complete failure, but we were coming back from Rochester, New York, and it was blazing, blazing hot. And I was driving my wife's Equinox, and we had this big trailer of music equipment, everything in the back. We were coming back from a show, and the AC was not working. I mean, we were burning up. We were just pouring sweat. 9 hours all the way back. Windows rolled down. No matter what we did to the AC, didn't work. It wasn't until we got back to Lexington and someone said, Adam, why don't you hit that little button? And the button was a snowflake. And the snowflake immediately started the AC. I'm an idiot. We sat there and sweated off 25 pounds, coming back from Rochester, New York, all the way to Kentucky, because I just wouldn't hit the button. But in that moment, it was like, aha, I got it. I know how to get AC, right? And then it changed everything I thought about that car. I went from thinking the car was a junker and it should be thrown away because I'm tired of dealing with problems, to all of a sudden the car actually has some value. You've probably had moments like that in your agency or in your business where you implement something or do something differently and you have an aha moment and it works. And you think to yourself, why haven't I done this before? Why haven't I implemented this before? Because I know it's working now. And if I would have done this 5 years ago, where could I be today? You've probably had that thought. That if I would have just made this change earlier, I would be at this level of travel. If I would have done this, I wouldn't have lost all these team members. And maybe you are the aha agent right now. And that's a great place to be. But let me give you the challenge of this one, at this level, because there's a challenge for every level. This level's challenge is people. Is you will find that not everybody in your business says aha at the same time, or they don't say aha at all. And the challenge here with the aha agent is deciding which staff are going to continue on in the new season and which staff you need to part ways with. It's been said, I forgot who said it. I didn't say it because I'm not smart enough to say this, but they said most business owners hire too fast and they fire too slow. And that's been true for me, is that I've hired people way too quickly just because I needed warm bodies, didn't really fully look to see if they were the right fit. And then when I knew they were the wrong fit, I held on way too long because I was afraid of giving them bad news or hurting them or whatever the case may be, right? And the number one thing that will crush your aha agent, your aha moment where you're like, yep, this is what we're going to do. Team, all aboard. Okay, this is proven to works. Now, this is not a new agent, right? Because you've now implemented it, you know it works, you've played it out long enough to see that it's got long-term effectiveness. All right. And you're like, wait, guys, this is what we're going to be. This is what we're going to be about. The struggle is going to be is to say, do all my team members buy into the same thing? And if they don't, you have to make the decision. Will they come into the fold or will they be a sore thumb? And the thing that I've learned is that one sour team member, one negative team member will spread through the rest of the team. And you got to let them go. Managing people and figuring out who's on board and who's not is the most challenging thing about being an aha agent. Now, I am not saying that you should just be firing people willy-nilly as soon as if they voice any kind of pushback, right? That's not a real business. That's not a real leader, right? Because you got to lead people through change. You've got to work people around what I call the square and types of change, right? So people need time to come to the same aha that you have, but there will come a moment when you're finding out that most of your team has got it, and you're going to have the one person who just can't get on board. At that point, you've got to bless them away. In other words, you bless them coming in, and you got to figure out a way to bless them away. In other words, you got to figure out how to send them on and figure out how to do it in love as well. So that's the aha moment. But let me tell you the fifth kind of agent, and I'm super excited about this kind of agent, but this agent is called the exponential agent. In other words, they're past all those other phases. They deeply care about their business. They're involved. They're not a set it and forget it, all right? They're not trying every new whim. But the exponential agent has proven processes and systems, and they spend their entire day figuring out how they can motivate people to buy in, to exponentially grow, right? They stack wins. That's what exponential agents do. They take the wins of yesterday and they celebrate them, but then they also figure out, okay, how do I build on those wins with the same proven methods to go further? An exponential agent understands that he or she cannot do it by themselves, that they have to have really, really great equipped team members to carry it out. In fact, the exponential agent will almost always come to me and say, I'm not the best person in my agency. In fact, there's an office manager, there's an agent aspirant in their office who are leading the charge. And the exponential agent, do you know what they spend their time doing? They simply spend their time building people. Why? Because the service work is taken care of. They're not selling. They're not the one throwing apps around, right? They might do some things right, because I don't think an agent should ever walk away from their customers. I think they should still be meeting with customers. But the majority of their time is not spent writing or servicing or answering the phone or putting out this fire, that fire. They've got equipped and well-paid people who are doing all those things. What they are doing is they're sitting in their office or wherever they're at, and they're figuring out, how do I build people and teams to build on top of my success? They're not worried about fixing anything or trying the new method, because they've got proven methods. Now they just got to figure out how to build people around those methods. So they spend their time talking with their team and encouraging their team and being great servers of their team. And an exponential agent is almost always marked by exponential growth. Is that the result should be that your business makes more money. The result should be that your business is more profitable. The result is, listen to this, that your business should lose some people. And that's not because they were bad or you fired them. It was because those people became agents themselves, because an exponential agent always produces other really good agents. I see it all the time. Like, if your agency's not produced an aspirant or a team member who wants to be an agent, then there might be a motivation problem, right? Because exponential agents make their team members want to be agents themselves, because they see the success that you've built, right? So that is the exponential agent. Now, let me tell you one thing about the exponential agent. It's not necessarily a challenge, but it is a temptation. The temptation for the exponential agent is for them to believe that they've already learned everything, that they already know everything. And what happens with that sometimes is that they miss something that could make their agency even more exponential, because they're not looking. So the exponential agent really needs to also spend time learning. I think we have to be lifelong learners. And the reason why you became an exponential agent, the reason why you are stacking wins at your agency, is not because you said it and forget it. You became an exponential agent because you were willing to learn. You were willing to keep your eyes open. And so if you're an exponential agent right now and you're growing and your team's building and you got proven processes and you spend your time building people, plan time to ask, am I missing anything? What is the new thing around the block? The cool thing about being an exponential agent is you have time to evaluate new processes, methods, strategies without implementing them in your agency, because you're already successful. You're already making money. So you can really take time to evaluate new things. Now, the key is that you are evaluating. You're not pushing to the side because you know everything. Now, that's different than, say, the new agent, right? The new agent, sometimes their agency's in crisis or something's wrong and they need to throw something into play right away, because you can always take it away, right? Like you can't get any worse. And so, but that's not the exponential agent. You've already got proven things, so don't swap it out if it's broken, if it's not broken. But if you find something that you want to implement in your agency, what you can do is you can roll it out on a small scale to maybe one team member and see how that plays without affecting everybody else. Okay, those are the 5 types of agent: the everyday agent, the set it and forget it agent, the new agent, the aha agent, and the exponential agent. My question is, which one are you? Is that where you want to be? If it is, okay, pat yourself on the back. Keep on going. Do you want to be a different type of agent? Okay, just make the decision today to be the different kind of agent, and then start doing things that will take you to whatever level you want to be. And remember what I said. I I think there are good and bad things about every type of agent that I just said. So you might set it and forget it, might be sound negative to you, but for some people, that's exactly what they intended to be. And so if it is, way to go. Just watch your DNA. Maybe you want to be an everyday agent, like you love the individual work of the agency. You love the rigmarole of the everyday. Fine, not a bad deal at all. Just make sure you're watching growth and make sure that you're still growing a little bit to maintain the lap scan, whatever it is. So that's it for episode number 37 of To the Front. I hope this was helpful. If you want to talk about it, just drop me a line. It's adam@imafrontrunner.com. And while I would not be your agency coach, we are paired with some great agency coaches that we could send you to them, and they do a really great job about helping you level up in what you do. So until then, thank you so much for following us. Go lead your agency with courage. Go lead it for something more than money, something that will outlive even you. Until then, take care.